You're welcome to the Economy and Politics Show. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. This edition will discuss expectation from Nigeria's first 2024 MPC meeting. Of course, decision day is today. And joining me virtually for this conversation is Dr. Ogho Okiti, the Chief Executive Officer of Team Business Africa. It's great to have you on the show, Dr. Ogho Okiti.
Thank you so very much for inviting me this afternoon.
Thank you. Let's look at the question. Given the crunching consequence of macroeconomic policies on the Nigerian household, what will you suggest that the government do in the short term? I know you've been anchoring on macroeconomic stability.
If you read the Bible very well, and this is not a Bible lesson, but I think we can draw something. The
Okay.
Bible does say that seek ye first the kingdom of God, and every other thing will be added to it. So macroeconomic stability is like that. When you look at macro metrics, we have to deal with the macroeconomic stability question before we can begin to talk of other things. Because every other progress that we want to actually make in the macroeconomic environment depends on the stability of prices, the stability of the exchange rate. So in Nigeria, the two are actually connected. So if you don't deal with that macroeconomic stability question, it will be very, very difficult to start looking at what happens to growth, what happens to jobs, what happens to investment, and of course, what happens to dealing with poverty in the short, medium, and in the long term. So yes, I go back and I reiterate the points I've made, over the last few weeks, and I made that point at your conference on Friday. We must deal with macroeconomic stability. It is the only thing that makes sense at the moment. So let me go back again. Let me give you this scenario. If you are a businessman today, or you are a consumer, you are a household, if you do have something above ₦1 million or 2 million, I know that not many of us have that kind of investable funds, but if you do have that, would you use it to buy shares or buy or do real estate or do some kind of business plans? No. You will want to turn that naira into US dollars. Why? Because you do not currently believe that naira will be able to hold today's value next week or in next month. So that is the critical problem. We have to deal with macroeconomic stability problem. Otherwise, we won't be able to deal with anything else. Thank you.
Right, let's look at it in terms of domestic inflation and household price challenges, which have been attributed to the foreign exchange market. You just talked about the issue of exchange rate stability. Should we revise the exchange rate regime or apply a different approach? There's a talk around managed floats. There's already a floating of the exchange rate. What should be the approach?
Okay, so there's this misconception, especially if you follow some people on Twitter, or that the reason we are where we are is because the currency was floated, or the reason we are where we are is because of the removal of fuel subsidy. No, there is no data to back up those two notions. So the reason we are where we are is neither because we actually floated the currency or because we removed the fuel subsidy. The reason we are where we are is because some set of information came out that showed and demonstrated that we do not have enough usable reserves to actually to support the naira, the value of the naira at the current rate. That is what actually made the market to panic. So if you actually look at it and say, oh, it's because of the floated, well, the naira was floated. That can only make sense if, because the naira was floated, Nigeria economy is now worse off by at least 100% compared to the US economy in the last 8 months. That is not the case. That's number one. Then number two, that notion will also work if you think, okay, the demand, I'm talking legitimate demand now. I'm not talking demand for the store of value. I'm talking legitimate has gone up by about 100 or 150% in the last 8 months. That is also not the case. So it's not because the naira was actually floated. It is actually because the series of information that came out on the basis of the activities of the last administration has drawn us to where we are at the moment. Now, if I leave it at that point, that will not be complete. where we are at the moment. So 2 points. One, where we are at the moment is not even completely float. There is no economy,
That can
whether
float
it's
the
China,
exchange rate.
whether it's India, that operates what you call a completely float currency. So Nigeria did a managed float currency.
Okay.
What the government did, and which is rightly so, is that they would not artificially keep it at, they will not keep it at an artificial level. So it's not that they are not managing it, because if they are not managing it, then they will not bother. They will not bother that the naira is rapidly depreciating. So the fact that they are bothered, the fact that they are concerned, the fact that they are bringing up measures, especially by the Central Bank of Nigeria, measures in order to stabilize the naira, is an indication that it is a managed float. Because if it is free float, I mean, you don't hear the UK or the US wake up in the morning and start talking about, oh, how do we manage our currency, that kind of thing, because it is actually free float. But however, there's another second point. The ingredients and the conditions for a successful managed float were not there when the reform was made. That is the only mistake that I believe that this government has made. The conditions, the ingredients for a successful managed float was actually not there at the time. But that is not to suggest that it is not a free float. If it is a free float, then we might as well leave it for free float. But if you actually look at some of the incredible and important measures that the Central Bank of Nigeria has released since we started having this rapid depreciation, it shows that it is a managed float. They've tried some measures of capital controls. They've tried some measures of obeying the rules. I mean, they've set out some rules. There are rules against the banks, and I mean, rules for the banks, rules for some capital controls. That's to show you that it is managed float. Managed float means that you are looking at some other metrics in terms of growth, your exports, to ensure that your exchange rate is optimal. What we had in the past administration was not optimal, but what we have today are measures trying to ensure that the rate is optimal, not necessarily free float. Thank you.
Even in addition, Dr. Ogho Okiti, there are also measures for the Bureau de Changes too, to show you that
Exactly.
it's part of the management process.
Yes, that's yes. So it that's to tell you that it's not completely, there's nothing like free float. I mean, we don't have those conditions, and we don't have the ingredients of a free float and fully convertible currency yet. And until we have that, no government will sensibly go in that direction.
Yeah, interesting insights. Doctor, today is the D-Day for the MPC decision. What are your expectations around interest rate hike? Currently, it's 18.75%. How would you expect this hike to be? I mean, 50 basis points, 100 basis points. Looking at our current economic conditions, growth rates, GDP around 3.46%. Also looking at inflation, headline inflation is 29.9%. and food inflation is 35.44%. It is really a trying time for the economy.
Yes, it is. It is. It is. It is. I mean, first thing first, I mean, congratulations to the governor. This is his first MPC under his leadership. So I mean, I believe there's so much expectations, and we actually put out some a story and an article suggesting that there are 4 reasons why the markets actually highly anticipate this MPC. The first one, obviously, is because this is the first one under his leadership. The second one is that there's been significant changes in the macroeconomic environment since the July meeting, and of course, the February 2024 meeting. And of course, the third one is, as you know, we actually have an entirely new MPC. Yeah, we have an entirely new MPC. This is an opportunity for the MPC to now bring about measures that it has not been able to actually carry out in the last 7 to 8 months to support the tightening of the liquidity space by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So if you look at it, so if you coalesce those four reasons, it makes this meeting very, very critical and very, very important. So what do I think will be the outcome? First, we did a survey of, we did a poll of some economists, and we actually also released that this morning. We did a poll of economists, and most of them actually believe that there will be an increase in the monetary policy rate. In fact, some suggest as much as 300 basis points. So if you had 300, that would be like 7.5%. I don't know if they will go as far as that, but I think there is a general consensus, and I would like to go with that consensus that there will be an increase in MPR. But what I think is more important than whether there's an increase or not is the measures of the MPC to complement the existing monetary policy measures in order to rein in the rapid recession of the naira. For me, that is what I'm looking for, and I hope that they really, really get the balance right. I'm really looking forward to those decisions later this afternoon, and I really, really hope that there's some kind of balance and some kind of metrics that support the measures that they've been able to carry out in relation to open market operations, some measures in terms of administrative, and of course in tackling the liquidity, the cancelling of the anchor borrowers program, that's the development financing. So there have been some very, very good measures. But what they have not been able to do, they have not been able to use the monetary policy rate instrument. They have not been able to use the other cash reserve ratio instruments. And this is a good time, I think, for us to have an idea and, of course, see what they are able to do with those tools and instruments later today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ogho Okiti, for this very fresh insight as we look at the first Monetary Policy Committee meeting for 2024 under the leadership of Central Bank Governor, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso. We will be monitoring developments as the MPC reels out its key decisions around the monetary policy rate, cash reserve ratio, liquidity ratio, and of course, a symmetric corridor. Thank you once again for the insights, Dr. Ogho Okiti, CEO of the Think Business Africa. Thank you once again for the time.
Thank you so very much for having me this afternoon. Thank you.
To our viewers, if you want to get further insights on this conversation, visit the ProShare website displayed on the screen and follow our social media platforms to engage further on this show. Till we come your way again, enrich yourself with the knowledge of socio-economic developments around you, because it is a wise thing to do. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.